First contact gone wrong. Commander Victoria Santos stood motionless on the bridge of the UES Sentinel, her eyes fixed on the holographic display before her. The deep space exploration vessel had been tracking an unusual energy signature for the past 3 days, following it through uncharted sectors of the galaxy. As the ship's most experienced officer, Victoria had seen her share of astronomical phenomena, but something about this signature felt different, deliberate. "Commander," Lieutenant Raj Patel called from his station, his dark fingers dancing across the sensor controls. "Energy signature is intensifying. Whatever it is, we're getting close." Victoria nodded, her silver-streaked black hair catching the blue glow of the bridge's ambient lighting. 20 years of deep space exploration had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now, every one of them was screaming that they were about to make history. "Engineering, status report," she commanded, her voice carrying the quiet authority that had earned her the respect of her 300 crew members. "All systems nominal, Commander," Chief Engineer Yuki Tanaka responded, her voice calm and measured despite the tension on the bridge. "Quantum shields are at full capacity, and the experimental phase shift drive is ready if we need a quick exit." The UES Sentinel represented humanity's finest achievement in space exploration. While other nations had focused on building massive warships, the United Earth Coalition had poured its resources into creating vessels that combined scientific capabilities with revolutionary defensive technologies. The Sentinel's quantum shields and phase shift drive were prime examples of humanity's innovative approach to space travel. The holographic display suddenly flared with new information, causing the bridge crew to shield their eyes. When the glare subsided, Victoria's breath caught in her throat. Before them lay a graveyard of ships, their hulls twisted and broken, still glowing with residual energy from whatever had destroyed them. "Life signs?" Victoria demanded, already moving toward the tactical station. Lieutenant Patel's fingers flew across his console. "Multiple escape pods detected, Commander. Reading approximately 5,000 survivors spread across the debris field." "But..." He hesitated, "the life signs are unlike anything in our database." "First contact," Victoria whispered, then louder, "and someone's trying to make it their last. Deploy rescue drones and prepare medical bay for possible alien physiology. Dr. Novak, you're up." The ship's xenobiologist, Dr. Helena Novak, was already reviewing the preliminary scans. "Fascinating," she muttered, her Polish accent thickening with excitement. "They appear to be silicon-based life forms, but with a respiratory system that could theoretically process our atmosphere. We can help them, Commander." Victoria was about to issue more orders when Lieutenant Patel's console erupted in warnings. "Multiple ships dropping out of FTL, Commander. Energy signatures match the weapons residue on the destroyed vessels." The holographic display shifted to show 3 massive ships emerging from rippling tiers in space. Their designs defied conventional physics, with hulls that seemed to bend light around them. As Victoria watched, they began launching smaller craft toward the debris field. "They're targeting the escape pods," Tactical Officer Marcus Wong reported, his voice tight with anger. "These aren't raiders, Commander. This is extermination." Victoria felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. First contact protocols were clear: observe and report, avoid interference unless absolutely necessary. But as she watched the alien ships methodically hunting down survivors, she knew that protocols would have to take a back seat to basic human decency. "All hands, battle stations," she commanded, her voice carrying through every compartment of the Sentinel. "Launch rescue operations immediately. Mr. Wong, power up our defensive grid. Lieutenant Patel, get me everything you can on those ships' capabilities. Dr. Novak, prepare triage protocols for the survivors." As her crew sprang into action, Victoria addressed the bridge. "I know this isn't what we trained for. We're explorers, not warriors. But right now, we're all that stands between 5,000 souls and extinction. Whatever happens next will define humanity's first steps into the galactic community. Let's show them what we stand for. The Sentinel's massive cargo bays began opening, rescue drones streaming out toward the nearest escape pods. The ship's quantum shields hummed to life, creating layers of overlapping defensive fields that had become humanity's trademark approach to space combat. Enemy fighters approaching, Wong reported. They're using some kind of temporal weaponry. Readings suggest they can accelerate the aging process of whatever they hit. Victoria allowed herself a grim smile. Then it's a good thing we humans never put all our eggs in one basket. Tactical, deploy our multiphasic point defense grid. Let's show these bullies that humanity's first impression won't be one of weakness. As the first alien fighters came into range, the Sentinel revealed its hidden strength. Dozens of defensive systems activated simultaneously, creating a web of intercepting fire that caught the attackers off guard. Railguns spat hypervelocity rounds while laser arrays created zones of denial. The alien fighters, clearly unused to such comprehensive defensive capabilities, scattered in confusion. First wave repelled, Wong announced, unable to keep the pride from his voice. But those capital ships are moving into position. Whatever they're powering up, it's big. Victoria watched the tactical display, her mind racing through options. They couldn't hope to defeat 3 capital ships, but they didn't need to. They just needed to buy enough time to save as many survivors as possible. Dr. Novak, status of the first survivors? They're calling themselves the Zephyrians, Helena reported. They're frightened but stable. Their technology level appears similar to ours, but focused on different areas. The attacking species, the hegemony, they're systematic exterminators of what they call inefficient civilizations. Victoria's jaw tightened. Well, they're about to learn that humanity has its own ideas about efficiency. All hands, prepare for emergency maneuvers. We're about to show them why you should never underestimate human ingenuity. The Prometheus Protocol. The Sentinel shuddered as the first temporal blast from the hegemony capital ship struck its quantum shields. Commander Santos watched the shield diagnostics with growing concern, but her expression remained steady. Her crew needed to see confidence, not fear. Shield analysis, Lieutenant Patel reported, his voice tense but professional. The temporal weapons are attempting to age our shield matrix by centuries per second. Primary shield layer has already degraded by 60 years. Fascinating, Dr. Novak interrupted, her eyes fixed on her own readings. They're not just aging the shields, they're creating localized time distortions. In theory, a strong enough blast could age parts of our ship into dust while leaving others untouched. Victoria processed this information as another blast rocked the ship. Chief Tanaka, talk to me about our shields. How are they holding up? Yuki's voice came through with the characteristic calm that had earned her the nickname Ice Queen among the engineering crew. Better than they should be, Commander. Our layered approach is actually working in our favor. When one shield layer ages to failure, the next takes over. We're burning through them, but slower than they probably expected. How many rescued so far? Victoria asked, turning to operations. 2,300 Zephyrians secured, Wong reported. Cargo bays 2 through 5 are at capacity. Bay 1 is still receiving survivors. Another impact rattled the bridge. Shields at 40%, Patel announced. The hegemony ships are adjusting their formation. They seem confused by our resilience. Victoria allowed herself a small smile. The hegemony clearly wasn't used to their targets lasting this long. Human engineering philosophy had always favored redundancy and overlapping systems over single powerful solutions. What looked messy and inefficient to others had become their greatest strength. Commander, Dr. Novak called out, excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. I've been analyzing their temporal weapon signatures. There's something we might be able to use. Their attacks create quantum entanglement fields before generating the temporal effects. If we could somehow reverse the polarity of our shield harmonics, we could create a feedback loop, Yuki finished, already catching on. Use their own temporal fields against them. But the energy requirements would be massive. We'd have to divert power from nearly every system. Victoria considered their options. They had already rescued nearly half the survivors, but the remaining Zephyrians wouldn't last much longer in their failing escape pods. A conventional retreat wasn't an option, the hegemony would simply finish what they started once the Sentinel left. What about the Prometheus Protocol? Wong suggested quietly. The bridge fell silent. The Prometheus Protocol was a theoretical emergency measure developed by Earth's top scientists, never tested outside simulations. It would use the ship's phase shift drive to create a temporary quantum superposition, allowing the Sentinel to exist in multiple states simultaneously. That's suicide, Patel protested. The energy feedback alone could tear us apart. Not if we combine it with Dr. Novak's shield harmonics idea, Yuki countered, her fingers already flying across her console. We could use the superposition to multiply our shield strength while reflecting their temporal attacks back at them. It's crazy, but the math works. Victoria watched another wave of hegemony fighters approach, their weapons blazing. The Sentinel's point defense grid was holding, but they were burning through ammunition. They needed to end this soon. Time to test the theory, she decided. Begin emergency evacuation of non-essential decks. Divert all spare power to the shields. Mr. Wong, plot firing solutions on all 3 capital ships, target their temporal weapon emitters. Dr. Novak, coordinate with engineering on the shield modifications. Everyone else, secure for extreme maneuvers. As her crew rushed to implement her orders, Victoria opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, this is the commander. What we're about to attempt has never been done before. The Prometheus Protocol was designed as a last resort, and that's exactly how we're going to use it. The hegemony thinks they can simply erase civilizations they deem inefficient. Today, we show them that humanity's greatest strength isn't in our technology, it's in our willingness to attempt the impossible. The bridge erupted into coordinated chaos as final preparations were made. Warning klaxons blared as power was rerouted from throughout the ship. The lighting dimmed to emergency levels as every available joule of energy was directed to the shields and phase shift drive. Hegemony ships are charging their temporal weapons, Patel reported. All 3 are preparing for a synchronized strike. Shield modifications complete, Yuki announced. Prometheus Protocol ready for activation on your mark. Victoria took a deep breath, her hands gripping her command chair. Everything hinged on the next few moments. If their calculations were off by even a fraction, the Sentinel would be torn apart at the quantum level. Remember your training, she told her crew. Whatever happens next, we face it together. Activate Prometheus Protocol on my mark. She watched as the enemy ships moved into their final attack position, their temporal weapons glowing with devastating power. 3. The ship's quantum core began to hum at frequencies that made teeth rattle. 2. Emergency force fields snapped into place around critical systems. 1. The phase shift drive spun up to speeds that pushed the boundaries of physics. Mark. Alliance of necessity. Reality itself seemed to fracture as the Prometheus Protocol activated. The UES Sentinel appeared to exist in multiple states simultaneously, its outline blurring as quantum superposition took effect. On the bridge, Commander Victoria Santos watched in awe as space warped around them, the ship's sensors struggling to make sense of their own existence across multiple quantum states. Protocol stabilized, Chief Tanaka reported, her voice strained as she fought to maintain control of the ship's systems. Shield harmonics are responding. We're ready for their attack. The hegemony ships fired as one, their temporal weapons unleashing devastating energy meant to age the Sentinel into dust. But instead of impacting directly, the temporal field struck a ship that both was and wasn't there, their energy scattered across multiple quantum states before being reflected back through the modified shields. "It's working!" Dr. Novak exclaimed, her eyes wide as she monitored the sensor readings. The temporal fields are being redirected back at their emission points. The quantum superposition is amplifying the effect exponentially. The results were immediate and spectacular. Where the hegemony's weapons had been designed to age their targets gradually, the reflected and amplified energy struck their ships like centuries of time compressed into seconds. Their temporal weapon emitters, subjected to their own power multiplied across quantum states, crumbled into ancient debris. Direct hits on all three capital ships, Wong reported, unable to hide his amazement. Their primary weapons they're just gone. Aged to dust. Lieutenant Patel's console erupted with new warnings. "Commander, the Prometheus protocol is destabilizing. We can't maintain quantum superposition much longer." "Disengage the protocol," Victoria ordered. "Return us to normal spacetime." Status of the hegemony fleet? As the Sentinel phased back into a single quantum state, the view screen showed the aftermath of their desperate gambit. The three massive hegemony ships hung motionless in space, their temporal weapons reduced to ancient ruins while the rest of their hulls remained untouched. Their fighter screens, seeing their capital ships disabled, had scattered in confusion. "Incoming transmission," Patel announced. From one of the hegemony ships. Victoria straightened in her chair. "Put it through." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a being that seemed to be made of crystalline structures and flowing energy. Its voice, translated by the ship's computers, carried a tone of disbelief. "This is Archon Vex of the Hegemony Purification Fleet. Your tactics, they are unprecedented. No species has ever turned our temporal weapons against us. This is Commander Santos of the UES Sentinel. Your attacks on the Zephyrians end now. We've demonstrated our capability to counter your weapons. The next reflection will be aimed at your engine cores." There was a long pause before the Archon responded. "You protect those who waste resources on art and philosophy. Their inefficiency weakens the galaxy's potential." "Inefficiency?" Victoria stood, her voice carrying the weight of conviction. "Your definition of efficiency is flawed, Archon. True advancement comes from diversity of thought and approach. The very tactic we just used was born from combining scientific theory with creative problem-solving, the exact kind of thinking you dismiss as wasteful." Dr. Novak stepped forward. "Commander, if I may?" At Victoria's nod, she addressed the Archon. "Your temporal technology is remarkable, but you've limited its potential by focusing solely on destruction. We just demonstrated how it could be manipulated in ways you never considered. Imagine what might be achieved if different cultures and perspectives were allowed to build upon each other's ideas rather than being erased." The crystalline being seemed to shimmer with internal light as it processed these words. "Your ship is damaged, your power reserves nearly depleted. Yet you speak as if you hold the advantage." "Because we do," Victoria replied calmly. "Not through superior firepower or technology, but through the strength of conviction. Humanity will not stand idle while you commit genocide. We'll share our defensive innovations with others if necessary. How long before your temporal weapons become useless against the entire galaxy?" Another long pause followed. When the Archon spoke again, its tone had changed. "Perhaps, there is inefficiency in our own thinking. A system that cannot adapt is ultimately self-defeating. We request dialogue." Victoria exchanged glances with her bridge crew before responding. "Dialogue is acceptable, but it must include representatives from the Zephyrians. If you truly wish to understand efficiency, start by learning from those you sought to destroy." As arrangements were made for preliminary discussions, Dr. Novak approached Victoria's chair. "Commander, the Zephyrian refugees we rescued are asking to speak with you. Their cultural leader has an interesting proposal." The next few hours were a flurry of activity. The Sentinel's medical bay and cargo holds had been transformed into temporary housing for the Zephyrian refugees. Victoria made her way through the crowded spaces, watching as humans and aliens worked together to treat injuries and distribute supplies. In one of the converted cargo bays, she met with the Zephyrian cultural leader, a being named Lysandra whose crystalline form captured and reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. Unlike the hegemony's rigid crystalline structures, the Zephyrians' bodies seemed to flow like liquid light. "Commander Santos," Lysandra's translated voice carried both gratitude and excitement, "your actions have done more than save our people. You've shown us that we're not alone in believing that progress comes from the integration of different ideas and approaches." "Your people's survival was reason enough," Victoria replied. "But I sense you have more on your mind." Lysandra's form shimmered with what Victoria was learning to recognize as enthusiasm. "We do. The way your ship combined scientific principles with creative thinking to defeat the hegemony, it's exactly the kind of approach we value. We propose a joint research initiative. Your technology, particularly this Prometheus protocol, combined with our understanding of quantum crystalline structures." Victoria smiled as she listened to Lysandra outline a vision of cooperation that could change the galaxy's future. Around them, human crew members and Zephyrian refugees were already exchanging ideas, each fascinated by the other's perspective on everything from engineering to art. The day's events had proven something Victoria had always believed: humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or shields, but in their ability to bring people together, to see possibilities where others saw only problems. As she watched her crew working alongside their new allies, she knew that this was just the beginning of a much larger story. Forging new paths. The observation deck of the UES Sentinel had become an impromptu conference room. Commander Victoria Santos stood before the vast viewport, watching as repair drones worked on the ship's outer hull. Behind her, representatives from 3 species sat around a makeshift table, their differences stark but their attention unified. "The hegemony's remaining fleet elements are withdrawing from this sector," Lieutenant Patel reported, his dark eyes scanning the latest sensor data. "But we're detecting increased activity along their borders. They're consolidating their forces." Archon Vex's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been concern. "Many within our leadership will resist change. The doctrine of efficiency through elimination has guided us for millennia. They will not easily accept its failure." "Then perhaps it's time to redefine efficiency," Lysandra interjected, her Zephyrian form casting prismatic patterns across the deck. "Commander Santos has shown us that true strength comes from adaptation and collaboration, not rigid adherence to outdated principles." Victoria listened to the exchange with measured attention. The past 48 hours had been a whirlwind of activity. While engineering crews worked to restore the Sentinel systems after the strain of the Prometheus protocol, diplomatic discussions had begun between the 3 species. The hegemony's initial shock at their defeat had given way to curiosity, particularly among their younger members. "Chief Tanaka," Victoria called over the comm, "status report on the prototype integration?" Yuki's voice came through clearly, though background noise suggested she was in the middle of complex work. "Fascinating progress, Commander. The Zephyrian quantum crystalline technology interfaces surprisingly well with our shield systems. Dr. Novak's theory about harmonic resonance was correct. The experiment they were conducting represented the first true collaboration between human and Zephyrian technology. Using salvaged crystals from damaged Zephyrian ships, they were attempting to create a hybrid defense system that would combine human redundancy with alien efficiency." "There's something else," Patel interrupted, his expression concerned. "Long-range sensors are picking up automated distress signals from multiple sectors. It seems the hegemony's withdrawal isn't just strategic, they're abandoning worlds they previously conquered." The revelation sent a ripple of tension through the room. Our convex crystalline structure dimmed noticeably. Those worlds, we maintained order through suppression fields tuned to our temporal technology. Without active control. They'll tear themselves apart, Dr. Novak finished, entering the observation deck with a data pad in hand. The suppression fields aren't just controlling them, they're integrated into their infrastructure. When the fields fail completely, their civilizations will collapse. Victoria felt the weight of responsibility settle deeper on her shoulders. What had begun as a rescue mission was rapidly evolving into something far more complex. How many worlds are we talking about? 23 inhabited systems, Patel reported. Estimated population in the billions. We cannot simply abandon them, Lysandra declared, her form brightening with determination. The Zephyrian people know well the cost of collapse. We volunteer our expertise in cultural rehabilitation. Victoria studied the tactical display showing the affected systems. The Sentinel was just one ship, already stretched thin with refugees and repairs. But the situation demanded action. Mr. Wong, plot a course to the nearest affected system. Chief Tanaka, I need options for stabilizing those suppression fields. Commander, Archon Vex spoke up, his tone carrying an unfamiliar note of humility. I would like to offer my knowledge of our systems. Perhaps it is time the hegemony learned to build rather than simply control. The next few hours saw the Sentinel's cargo bays transformed yet again, this time into research and planning centers. Humans worked alongside Zephyrians and even former hegemony crew members, combining their unique perspectives to address the crisis. Dr. Novak led teams in analyzing the suppression field technology, looking for ways to safely deactivate it without causing catastrophic failure. The solution isn't in the technology, Dr. Novak announced during an emergency briefing. It's in the people. These worlds don't need new controllers, they need tools to rebuild their own societies. Victoria watched as humans and aliens alike brainstormed together, creating plans that would have been impossible for any one species alone. The Zephyrians contributed their experience in cultural preservation, while reformed hegemony members provided critical technical knowledge. Human adaptability and creativity served as the bridge between these different approaches. We're ready for our first attempt, Chief Tanaka reported. The Sentinel had arrived at Outpost 7, a medium-sized colony world under hegemony control. The modified crystals should allow us to gradually step down the suppression field while broadcasting a stabilizing frequency. As they initiated the procedure, Victoria reflected on how far they'd come in such a short time. The ship's original mission of exploration had led them to something far more profound, the birth of a truly cooperative galactic community. The holographic display showed the suppression field beginning to fluctuate. Tense moments passed as they waited to see if their solution would work. Then, slowly but surely, signs of independent activity began to appear on the surface. The colonists were awakening, not to chaos, but to possibility. It's working, Patel confirmed, relief evident in his voice. The colonial infrastructure is stabilizing. We're receiving transmissions from the surface, they're confused but calm. Victoria turned to address the assembled representatives. This is just the beginning. We have 22 more worlds to help, and that's just the start. The galaxy is changing, and we need to change with it. Not through force or control, but through cooperation and understanding. Lysandra's form shimmered with agreement. Perhaps this is the true efficiency the hegemony sought, not the elimination of differences, but the harmony of diversity. As the Sentinel prepared to move on to the next world in need, Victoria couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in how far they'd come. What had started as a simple rescue mission had evolved into something far more significant, the first steps toward a genuinely united galaxy, built not on conquest or control, but on the shared desire to build something better together. A new dawn. 2 months after the initial encounter, the UES Sentinel approached Earth, its hull bearing the marks of its extraordinary journey. Commander Victoria Santos stood on the bridge, watching her home planet grow larger in the viewscreen. The ship looked very different now. Zephyrian crystals had been integrated into its structure, their ethereal glow complementing the traditional human engineering. Final approach vector calculated, Lieutenant Patel announced, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had grown immensely over their mission. Earth Defense Command is requesting a status update on our unusual escort. Victoria glanced at the tactical display, where two former hegemony ships and a Zephyrian vessel flanked the Sentinel. Inform them that these are our allies, representatives of the newly formed Galactic Cooperation Initiative. The past months had been intense but rewarding. The Sentinel had led the effort to stabilize 17 of the 23 affected worlds, developing new techniques and technologies through the combined efforts of all three species. Each success had brought more converts to their cause, including a growing faction within the hegemony itself. Commander, Dr. Novak called from her station, the final data from the Prometheus crystal integration trials is complete. The results are remarkable. The efficiency improvements exceed our initial projections by 300%. Chief Tanaka's voice came through the comm system, pride evident in her tone. The hybrid technology we've developed isn't just more efficient, it's opened up possibilities we never even considered. The Zephyrian crystals amplify our quantum fields while the hegemony's temporal understanding helps us control them. It's beautiful engineering. Victoria smiled, remembering how skeptical everyone had been at first about combining such different technological approaches. But humanity's tendency to experiment, to try unlikely combinations, had proven transformative. Incoming transmission from Earth Command, Wong reported. Admiral Winters wants to speak with you privately, Commander. Victoria nodded and moved to her ready room. The Admiral's holographic form appeared before her, his expression unreadable. Commander Santos, I've reviewed your mission reports. To say they're extraordinary would be an understatement. Sir, I understand our actions deviated significantly from first contact protocols. The Admiral held up his hand. Your actions, Commander, while unorthodox, may have just changed the course of human history. The UEC Security Council has reviewed the proposed Galactic Cooperation Initiative. They've voted to support it fully. Victoria felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The initiative, born from their shared experiences, proposed a new approach to galactic civilization, one that valued diversity of thought and method while promoting genuine cooperation between species. There's more, the Admiral continued. The Council is establishing a new division, the Interstellar Cooperation and Development Fleet. They want the Sentinel to be its flagship, with you as fleet commander. Back on the bridge, Victoria shared the news with her crew. The celebration that followed wasn't just human. Zephyrian crystalline harmonics filled the air while even the Stoic hegemony representatives joined in their own way, their forms pulsing with controlled enthusiasm. Message from Lysandra, Patel announced. The first joint research facility on their homeworld is ready for inauguration. They're already calling it the Santos Institute for Collaborative Innovation. Victoria felt her cheeks warm at the honor, but her attention was drawn to Archon Vex, who had approached her position. The former hegemony leader had changed notably over their journey, his crystalline form now incorporating subtle traces of Zephyrian patterns. Commander, he began, his translated voice carrying new harmonics, our latest survey indicates that 37 previously isolated civilizations have petitioned to join the initiative. They speak of the human approach, this remarkable ability to find strength in difference rather than weakness. It's not just a human approach anymore, Victoria replied, gesturing to their transformed ship and diverse crew. What we've built here goes beyond any one species. It's about recognizing that true progress comes from combining our strengths, not enforcing a single way of thinking. Dr. Novak joined them, her data pad displaying results from their latest joint research project. The implications are staggering. Each new species brings unique perspectives, different approaches to problems. We're not just sharing technology, we're evolving how we think. As Earth grew larger in their view, Victoria reflected on how far they'd come. A single human ship had set out to explore the unknown and had instead become the catalyst for a fundamental change in galactic society. The Sentinel's quantum crystal hybrid shields were just the beginning. Already, teams of humans, Zephyrians, and reformed hegemony scientists were developing technologies that would have been impossible for any one species alone. Fleet-wide transmission from Earth Defense Command, Wong announced. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, including translations for our allies. The message was brief but powerful. Welcome home, UES Sentinel. Welcome to Earth, representatives of the Galactic Cooperation Initiative. Together, we begin a new chapter in the history of all our peoples. Victoria looked around her bridge, at humans working seamlessly alongside beings they hadn't known existed 3 months ago, at technology that merged the best aspects of 3 different civilizations, at former enemies now working together to build something greater than themselves. Plot final approach course, she ordered, her voice carrying the quiet confidence that had served her so well. And send a message to all ships in the initiative fleet. Tell them that this isn't an ending. It's a beginning. The galaxy is changing, and we're changing with it. Together. As the Sentinel led its unusual fleet toward Earth, Victoria thought about the report she would write for future generations. How does one describe the moment when everything changed? Perhaps, she decided, it was enough to say that humanity had found its place in the galaxy not through dominance or submission, but through the simple, powerful act of bringing people together and showing them a better way forward. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if they too were witnessing the dawn of something new, a future where the strength of civilization lay not in uniformity, but in the beautiful, complex harmony of difference working together toward common goals.